Next up, podcast listeners, we have the dumbest bill in America. And do we have a lead up, Mr. Assistant Producer?
Of course.
Here it is. And it's the dumbest bill in America. And it is out of the state of New York. And the dumbest bill in America is forced COVID detention camps in New York. Yeah, you heard that right. Forced COVID detention camps in New York. So, New York may legalize forced COVID removals from your home. They may legalize that. You get COVID, and they decide in New York, we're going to remove you from your house, and we're going to detain you somewhere where we put you. We're going to just put you over there, and we're going to detain you over there because we can. The bill allows New Yorkers deemed a public health risk to be detained. New York Assemblyman Nick Perry from New York City introduced Bill A416, which has to deal with forced COVID removals from your house. I'm going to read a section of this bill for you because you have to, I want to be fair, okay? Whenever we do the dumbest bill in America, we try our best to read actual sections from the bill so that you can understand that we are in no way creating any kind of hyperbole about the bill. The bill says what it says. So here's A416, State of New York, in the 2021 and 2022 regular session in the New York Assembly from Nick Perry. Introduced by him, and it says, the public health law is amended by adding a new section, so forth, as follows. Removal and detention of cases, contacts, and carriers who are or may be a danger to public health. Other orders. The provisions of this section shall be utilized in the event that the governor declares a state of health emergency due to an epidemic of any communicable disease. Upon determining by clear and convincing evidence that the health of others is or may be endangered by a case, contact, or carrier, or suspected case, contact, or carrier of a contagious disease that, in the opinion of the governor, after consultation with the commissioner, may pose an imminent and significant threat to the public health, resulting in severe morbidity or high mortality, the governor or his or her delegee, including but not limited to the commissioner or the heads of local health departments, may order the removal and or detention of such a person or a group of such persons by issuing a single order. And then it goes on and just explains how that would all work out. That's from the bill itself, ladies and gentlemen. Okay? And you wonder why we call it the dumbest bill in America? I mean, this guy literally has a bill, A416 in the state of New York, in the 2021-22 session, Nick Perry from New York City, that basically allows the governor under a health emergency to say to you, we don't trust you to do the right thing when you get a communicable disease like COVID. We're going to just force you out of your house and we're going to detain you for as long as we want with no check and balance in sight. In fact, the bill even goes on to say that you can't even argue with the state. You can't even go to court for like 60 days. So, because I guess, their assumption is, well, since you have a communicable disease, if you go to court, the judge might get it or whatever. This is totalitarian stuff. This is totalitarian. So we have David Smith of Altus, which is a big cable company in New York. And he has a 219 interview. It's actually 2 years ago when he did this interview with Assemblyman Nick Perry. And the Assemblyman Nick Perry, of course, is the one that put in this stupid bill, this dumbest bill in America. And we want to give you a feel of this guy because, we just want you to know what Nick Perry is about. We have a clip on this, and here it is.
Again, the Democrats now have firm control of the Senate and the House, as well as the big chair.
Full control.
Full control. What is that going to mean from the interest of you and your constituents in getting things done?
Oh, very promising and extremely optimistic that very good progressive legislation that's been beat around and hanging on the table for so long, we'll finally get to pass them, and then it'll be up to the governor.
So in 2019, so literally 2 years ago, because we're in 2021 now, that interview took place where the Republicans lost complete control of the state of New York in the Assembly. So Republicans didn't have the lower house or the upper house in New York State, nor did they have the governorship. So Democrats were in complete control, and David Smith of Altus, the cable company, is interviewing Nick Perry there, where he says, well, now that you're in control of everything, what are you going to do? So in that same interview, Assemblyman Nick Perry is asked about, well, you're in control, so what's your priorities? You're going to love what his priorities are, which tells you where this guy's really coming from. And here is the clip.
So this session, I want to focus on another progressive piece of legislation. Senator Zelna Myrie and myself will be pushing the Prisoner Minimum Wage Act.
So the Prisoner Minimum Wage Act is what his priority is. You can imagine what that bill is, of course, just by its title. And so David Smith of the Altus, the cable company, again, he's the interviewer, asks Nick Perry, well, what are you trying to achieve for the prisoners? This minimum wage act, what are you trying to achieve? So we have that clip, and here it is.
What are you seeking for those prisoners?
Well, slavery, we believe, was abolished under the 13th Amendment, but it specifically explains that if you are a prisoner, if you're incarcerated, you are property of the state, and for you, slavery continues because the state can subject you to work with no pay under any condition. And in New York State, prisoners who are working or who are forced to do work that otherwise would have been paid for by the state, they earn up to 10 cents an hour.
So let's get this straight. Nick Perry, his priority, now that Democrats are in control in the state of New York, 100%, his priority is the Prisoner Minimum Wage Act. He wants prisoners to receive a minimum wage while they are incarcerated, because he calls prisoners slaves. Yet this is the same guy that has the dumbest bill in America of 2021, at least so far, whereby he wants there to be forced COVID detention camps. I mean, I'm sorry, they're forced detention camps. Isn't that also a type of slavery, at least using his logic? I'm just saying. I mean, who are these idiots that get elected that put in these bills in the state of New York? And look, here's my takeaway from this dumbest bill, and I was talking to our assistant producer, Chris, earlier about this, and that is, if you ever want an argument of why a single-payer system in the United States is a bad idea, right? If you ever want an argument of why government should not be in full 100% control in a single-payer system of your health care, if you ever wonder about that, this bill and the coronavirus issue and the pandemic in the United States should give you great pause of why you should always oppose a single-payer government-controlled system. Because under the guise of a health emergency, governments, states across the country, some more than others, obviously, have decided to just lock everybody down. They've shut businesses down, but they've kept the big businesses open, like Walmart. They've forced you to basically, in some cases, lose your house or lose your job. And then now they're saying in New York, well, now that we've done all of that under the guise of a health emergency, now we have the right to forcibly remove you from your house and detain you indefinitely until such time as we decide that you are no longer a risk to your fellow men. I mean, that is why I have always, look, great example, right? COVID, 2020, the pandemic, and now 2021, great example of why you don't want the government in control of your health care. Because government can then deny you your health care unless you do what they tell you to do. Or they can, potentially just let you die like they did in New York, where Governor Cuomo sent people with COVID to nursing homes. I mean, New York, if you live in New York now and you have a choice, you truly have a choice of where you want to live, and you are even a moderately Republican, if you're middle of the road, let's say, or you're a Republican, you need to get the heck out of New York, and you need to do it as fast as you possibly can. And you know what I hope that you do? I hope that you move to places like Michigan or Pennsylvania or Wisconsin. And I hope you do that so that we can have the Republicans in New York move out en masse and move to the nearby states that are more similar to the areas where they grew up, where we can regain control of those states in the Electoral College and finally restore the American Republic. Because this dumbest bill by Nick Perry demonstrates to us the dangerous tipping point that we're at in America with a single-payer system, as well as forcing people to do what they want you to do because they control your health care. I mean, I just don't understand why no one is actually seeing this. And oh, by the way, I got to add this, okay? So Politico magazine talked about this bill, this dumbest bill in America, and they just put out an article. It was just a day or two ago. And the Politico tries to explain away how stupid and dangerous this bill is. Here's what Politico says. The article is titled, "Long Dormant Assembly Bill Becomes Subject of Conspiracy Theories." Okay? Long Dormant Assembly Bill becomes subject of a conspiracy theories. And here's what it says. The vast majority of the 20,000 or so bills introduced in the state legislature of New York every session never wind up being debated, receive no votes, and become little more than pieces of paper that are reintroduced with little thought for however many years or decades the sponsor winds up serving. In other words, the Politico magazine is saying that Nick Perry, who put in this ridiculous bill, had introduced it before. And really, there was really no thought in putting the bill in because, he's put it in before and no one was really outraged until this year that he put the bill in. Well, that's because the media doesn't report about these things. In fact, that's the whole reason why we're doing this podcast, because there is no reporting whatsoever about any of this crazy stuff. And his bill probably didn't seem that dangerous until it started actually getting legs this year because of COVID. And because of the fact that Cuomo, the governor of New York, is all about consolidating as much power as he can. Do you think for 1 minute, if you said to Governor Cuomo, "Hey, Governor, you're telling me to shut down my restaurant? I refuse to shut it down. I refuse to lock down. I need to make a living. No one should come in my restaurant that's really concerned." Do you think for 1 minute that if this bill passed, that Governor Cuomo wouldn't say to you, "I'm going to forcibly remove you from your house and, detain you under the public health risk that you have given to the people of New York"? Folks, this is why the bill is dangerous. This is why the bill is dangerous. And you don't just put a bill in because you can. You actually have to think about not only the positive effects of the bill, but also you have to think of the problems the bill might actually create. But that's not what Democrats do. They think more legislation just makes us so much safer as a society. And that is the dumbest bill in America, forced COVID detention camps in New York. And that is it. For Mark and the Millennials, thank you for joining Mark and the Millennials. This is Mark Fisher. Thank you to Christopher Hopkins. Check us out on iTunes, Spotify, YouTube, Facebook, Twitter, Parler, Rumble, and our website. See you next time.